Banned from LinkedIn. Banned from Facebook. Now broadcasting from the jungles of South America. Find out everything they don't want you to know. This is Biz Unlearned.
Hey, it's Cowboy and Tim McKinnon coming back at you again for another episode of Biz Unlearned. We're going to do a very quick rundown on 2025, what's been going on, and a year in review, only a year in review. Much quicker than most people fuck around with it, so I'm going to give it to you real quick and dirty. So, Tim, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and I just want to give all of our listeners the format here. So I got a shot clock coming up of a minute. What I'm going to do here is we're going to go one by one. We're going to riff off all of the top topics that we found in 2025. I'll give you a quick intro as to what's happening, and then our Biz Unlearned angle. Cowboy will take it home, and then we'll do that 10 times. So this is going to be a quick episode for you. Let's get started. The first topic is energy transition, more specifically focusing on China and the US. Businesses have been hit hard here with the U-turns in US policy, have scrapped many of the clean energy incentives. While we're seeing record solar and wind power generation levels, clean power jumped 15%. The Chinese are taking over as tech exports $180 billion worth of EVs. While that's all on the go, 2025 taught businesses to unlearn any complacency about the energy transition. Cowboy, what are your thoughts on energy transition?
Well, I mean, they never really made electric cars and shit like that work. I mean, what the hell? You go and charge up your electric car on the fucking street, and you're using a diesel generator. I mean, what the fuck is that? You're still using fuel to charge up your batteries, so they never got away from it unless you're doing a solar power car or something. Forget about it. It's shit. It's a joke. Not to mention the destruction that comes from digging up the materials for a damn battery is much worse than oil.
Awesome. Okay, we're on to the next one here. Billionaire boom and bubble concerns in the U.S. economy. This is an interesting stat that I thought was pretty cool. 340 new billionaires in 2025. 50% above the average rate of billionaire creation. $18.7 trillion globally. You've heard the headlines. You guys like Musk at Tesla, SpaceX, Larry Ellison at Oracle, gaining $100 billion. Nothing wrong with making a ton of money. One of the things we want to talk about, though, is the massive wealth concentration in 2025 rings alarm bells. Businesses should unlearn the assumption that such gains are normal and sustainable, especially with inflation coming down a bit. Right. Historically, when you have extreme disparities, they correct painfully. What are your thoughts going into 2026 here with that wealth separation and concentration?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is a dollar's worth a fuckload more. So, of course, you're going to get a lot more people that look on paper. Maybe they would have been a millionaire 100 years ago instead of a billionaire. But not to mention overcompensation of CEOs that possibly do not deliver. I mean, I still remember when Carly Fiorina was fired from Hewlett Packard. They basically sued over her exit package because, hey, thanks for ruining the fucking company. Let me give you $25 million. It's like, what the fuck is that about? So there's a significant amount of overcompensation there. And things need to be performance-based. And a lot of times they're not. A lot of times they're name-based and that type of thing, especially when you're looking for a savior CEO.
Third topic, worker strikes and power shifts. Let's keep it going here. We're a minute and a half on every topic. 2025 continued with huge labor movements. There's two of them that I found particularly interesting. One was the United Auto Workers. They've started in 2023, but it's continued out. Detroit's Big Three, with big raises and guarantees that EV battery factory jobs will be unionized. The second angle on this is not just automotive manufacturing or EVs, but also in Hollywood, the Writers Guild went on strike in 2023, and that's kind of trailing into 2025. With historic protections against AI, one of the things we talk about on the historic Biz Unlearned podcast, and you've had a few Hollywood people on here, is management unlearning the notion that employees will passively accept whatever comes. Workers' strikes and power shifts are coming here. How do project leaders How do they behave here going forward into 2026 with all of these worker strike and power shift issues?
No, I think it's the workers that are going to learn a new way of doing things. Everybody figured, we're going to unionize, and then that was a big thing when I was up in Pennsylvania, and the union was like, "What the fuck? You're moving the plant?" And it's like, yeah, if you guys are going to be dickheads, we're just going to move. And that plant only cost the company $1 a year. So if you're going to be an asshole, we're going to move out of a place where we don't need the fucking union. There was a time where unions were needed because they needed the protection and everything else. And then it turned into the fucking new mafia where they're just going to demand stuff. I mean, I sat there in Pennsylvania. They're standing around the fucking clock 15 minutes before they have to clock out. Why? Because no one's going to make them do anything else. Fuck you. Go to work.
All right, that was an interesting perspective. We didn't prep this, so I did not expect you to come from that angle. Boys, get back to work.
Hey team, it's Cowboy here. If you like the content that you're seeing on Biz Unlearned, Tim and I have got a success team over on projectvictories.com, and you can get even more information there and even ask questions live or email questions in, and we can answer them. Maybe you'll even be a topic for a podcast or a guest, and you can get started for only $1. So why don't you let us know, because there's a lot of people that took advantage of this, including the Deputy Director of IT for the United Nations, who was not the Deputy Director of IT for the United Nations when he came to me. So we can help you out. So why don't you drop by and see it and let us know. Now, on with the podcast.
On the topic of going back to work, our next topic here for 2 minutes is the return to office showdown. Now, before we start talking about the return to office showdown, I will mention that I do believe historically, like hundreds of years ago, offices were created. Husbands and wives could get away from each other rather than living in the same place all the time. In today's economy, the tug of war between employers and employees over remote work is intensifying. Big corporations are now mandating more days in the office. I think it was Jamie Dimon that was talking about it. You got to come back into the office. By the end of 2024, coming into last year, 75% of U.S. workers are required to be in the office regularly. CEOs are touting more collaboration, but many people are pushing back. 46 said that they started to do job hunting in full-time remote, was starting to be axed. Our angle here is this trend is forcing leaders to unlearn the one-size-fits-all mindset about productivity. I'll give it to my opinion quickly before I kick it to you, Cowboy, but you know me, I've been working remotely and on the road. I live 6 months on the year, but I know friends back home that have corporations, especially in like Calgary, and they got to drive 30 minutes each way. But the real thing for me is if you can work remotely in a productive way, there's nothing wrong with that. However, we're seeing that kind of pushback on U.S. companies. What's your take on that?
It's a theory X, theory Y situation. If employers are theory X, they're saying get your ass back in the office. If they're theory Y and they trust you, they don't give a fuck. They're just saying get the damn job done. So it's definitely a theory X and theory Y situation. And there's no reason to pay the overhead for being in buildings or anything else, which is why you see Microsoft's going fully remote, Twitter went fully remote. Google got shit on by trying to bring the employees back, saying, hey, if you bring us back, we're going to fucking quit. And why spend all the overhead on offices and electricity and everything else just because you don't trust your fucking employees? You might as well tag your fucking wife and make sure she doesn't get texted to the fucking airport.
But I think we agreed on that one a lot. I think that's going to be the play here and how the business have to work on it. Now let's pick it up a little bit here. We got 5 more to get through. Upskilling over hiring. By Q1 of last year, 50% of open roles were filled internally. That's the whole concept of developing people inside instead of always hiring. Right? The era of hire fast is starting to wane. Smart organizations are unlearning the habit of treating people as interchangeable. One thing I will mention, and I'll kick it to you, Cowboy, because this is a pretty obvious one. I know last year, a lot of companies that were waiting for regulatory or third-party constraints, had a bunch of people and there were a lot of layoffs. And that happens with small to medium-sized businesses. They got to lay off, get it growing quick, and then figure out how to optimize. What's your take on upskilling over hiring?
I believe in bringing people up. I think that's a good thing if they're going to have employees. I also believe in the contractor model because if some motherfucker's not working, fine, just ask them, how long have you been working for me, not counting the day? Get the fuck out of here. That type of thing. But if they're really dedicated to the company and to the team, I believe in upskilling them. But it doesn't get rid of the fact that those people are going to be more involved in politics. And if you've got a political issue that you need to get a new set of eyes on, that's when you still need to bring someone in from outside who doesn't give a fuck about your politics.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. Let's get on to the next topic. We're now cooking. This is an economic soft landing point, and I'll put a chart up here that I've sent to Cowboy that everybody should look at. It's an economic indicator for a recession is near. When the unemployment rate rises above a 3-year moving average, a recession is near. That's been predicted since like 1950, and the chart here we'll put on the screen shows you that. Now, after fears of recession in prior years, our 2025 economy delivered a presence of a surprise in the United States. They tamed inflation to 3% near a manageable level. Now, the Biz Unlearned angle here is the soft landing taught executives to unlearn doom and gloom instincts, stay agile, and not overreacting to short-term turbulence, which has been paid off a bit. However, split outcomes, booming markets, and a squeezed middle class also reminds us that averages can be misleading. What's your take on 2026 coming up here for recession and economic soft landing?
I believe that there's a very good possibility of a recession in America in 2026. Now, in general, we've had a lot of inflation in America. I mean, I don't live there anymore. You don't live there anymore. We've seen it. There's a lot of inflation in America. And, hey, man, we use the same fucking currency down here, and we got deflation here while they've got inflation there. So there's clearly bigger fucking problems. And they also had a climbing unemployment rate with the dollar being worth a fuckload less. So big fucking problem, and it doesn't add up.
Second problem coming off of that and leads us into our next topic of trade wars and supply chain shifts. This is a big one especially when President Donald Trump is talking about inflation. Obviously, geopolitical tensions, and we've talked about this on previous pods in 2025, so check them out, listeners. A new round of tariffs in early last year sent a lot of firms scrambling. Apple accelerated moving 15 to 20% of iPhone production to India and Vietnam, over investing in China. Retail giant Walmart reacted by cutting its Chinese imports by 10% in 2024. Deloitte is now predicting 40% of companies will nearshore part of their supply chain to North America. I think one of the topics we want to think about here is Trump initially was doing high tariffs and scaled them back a bit, but they might be here to stay, especially with his claims that debt might be starting to get under control. I mean, holding aside military spending seems to be increasing. Companies are starting to unlearn the old mantra of hyper efficiency through single cost concentration. Are there any lesson plans for suppliers, regional hubs, and friendshore partnerships we should be watching in 2026, Cowboy?
Wow, yeah. I mean, look at it. So the tariffs were on China significantly, and that was supposed to be to bring work to America. McDonald's is a damn good example. When California votes in a $25 an hour minimum wage for an employee, and people are like, why am I 99 cent fucking lefty meal now $25? And it's like, because you paid for it, motherfucker. And so they didn't move it back to America. They just moved it to another country. It still stayed out of America. So this whole fucking thing is backfired on him. And it's very obvious that that's where they want people to go. The back office is going to start being out of America. And the forward-facing person is going to be an American salesperson or something like that, working out of their house.
This was not one of our planned topics, but it's definitely something we need to talk about. So you'll get a bonus. This is your 11th topic that we want to talk about on Biz Unlearned. Cowboy and myself both reside in South America, but it's definitely a topic that's current on everybody's mind. We saw the Americans lined up on the shores of Venezuela, and took out Maduro there, got him. And there's been a lot of discussion about heavy oil, about narcos, about a lot of different things here. And I just saw yesterday Trump put all of the executives from oil and asked them to invest $100 billion into Venezuela. Now, what I found interesting was the CEO of Exxon, I think the largest oil company, said, look, we've been burnt twice and we've had our assets stripped going into Venezuela. So this is our bonus topic for the day. My question here is from a purely, we don't want to get political here. Be living in South America, we have lots of Venezuelans here that we love, that are family and friends. We want to keep this purely from a business perspective on oil in Venezuela. Cowboy, what's your take on these oil leaders that Trump was talking to yesterday? What should they be fearful of? And what should the biz unlearned be? Should they've been burnt twice? Should they try a third time? Or what's your take?
Well, there's certainly once bitten, twice shy. Trump's going to have to guarantee him that things have really changed. And, the military in Venezuela, of course, said, we're not giving up, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of oil reserves in Venezuela. I mean, many years ago, they actually had the 14th best economy in the fucking world. And it was before Maduro. Chavez got reelected, but of course died of cancer. And I once was teaching Citgo, which was a Venezuelan company, and I was teaching risk management. And I had a couple of guys from America ask me, well, what if your CEO doesn't care about any of that shit? And I'm like, please tell me what you mean. And it's like, well, there's only one share of stock in Citgo, and it's Chavez. And the whole board of directors is his generals. He only creates jobs in Venezuela when it's election time so he can get reelected. And then after he gets reelected, he shuts down the fucking work in fucking Venezuela and moves it somewhere else. And I'm like, well, in that case, you just got to figure out whether or not you still want to be there. But at least you know what the game plan is for him. And I think Exxon's been down here in Ecuador, Exxon's been in Venezuela, and they did get burned. They got sued, but the reason they got sued for most of those situations is because they fucked up the Amazon. You know what I mean? Don't do that.
It'll be interesting to see, and thank you, our listeners. That's your bonus topic. We have 3 more to cover in our top 10. That Venezuelan one is kind of a 2026 one. That's why we didn't include it in the top 10. Let's transition a little bit to sports, the sports world as a big business, and actually coming off of sports and becoming a soft power. Headlines, huge. Obviously, the Saudi Arabians, big in global sports, right? After the Live Tour of golf, they are now secured rights for hosting Formula One. This sparked a debate about sports washing, using sports to burnish a nation's image, and whether athletes and leagues should take stands on human rights. Meanwhile, women's sports reached new heights. I think the 2025 Women's World Cup hosted in Mexico drew record viewership globally, and several women's soccer and basketball leagues inked massive media deals. Now, the angle we want to talk about today on Biz Unlearned is sports is now becoming a lesson about influence, both culturally and politically. Businesses can unlearn the idea that sports are just games and that they've now become platforms for branding, diplomacy, and social change. What's your take on the sports world on how it's evolving just from business into politics into culture?
Well, I mean, come on. It's like sports have always been big business, from swag to $500 fucking Super Bowl tickets to everything else. They've always been big business. And the only reason professional ball is, it makes more money than college balls because you can drink at the pro games. I mean, those first facts. You can't pay quarterbacks a bunch of fucking money if the franchises are making money. So it's always been big business. As for Saudi Arabia, that was pretty easy. The new king went into place in January of 2015. He doesn't want oil to be their primary commodity. He wants tech to be their primary commodity. And he wants tourism. He wants to look like Abu Dhabi and Dubai. He wants people to actually come and visit Saudi Arabia without getting their fucking heads cut off. And one of the ways of doing that is, of course, sports, because that's what you get in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, is you get all the races. So, yeah, man, he's definitely going to do that. This guy is the only guy in Saudi Arabia that's ever had a fucking travel and tourism prince. And it's like, what the fuck? Traveling with tourism in Saudi Arabia? I was there. It's one big fucking beach.
That's one of the things I love about the Arabians is when you live in a desert with a lot of oil, you have to be world-class marketers, and they've seemed to excelled in that. Lastly, we have two topics. We'll do how could we leave 2025 without talking about AI not once but twice. Let's start with the failures and backlash in AI, and we'll post a link here. You can go watch it after the video to McDonald's. I think that was one of the high-profile AI initiatives that backfired spectacularly. If any of you saw the AI-generated holiday cringe-worthy video McDonald's put up, they pulled it 3 days due to public backlash. We also saw a few other failures where things like, I think Meta had an AI demo where the new smart glasses failed live on stage, leaving everybody fumbling. I guess the lesson here is clear. The companies must now unlearn the hype that AI can replace human creativity and empathy. Successful businesses will use it, and we've talked about this on my first episode, I think a year and a half ago, how AI is a tool with human oversight today, not a crutch. And so we need to prevent this AI slop and preserve authenticity. What's your take on the AI backlash and failures?
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody's going to want to try and shit something that came out to change the world and fail. On the other side of that, you got to represent it's going to take everybody's fucking jobs. And it's like, well, if you're flipping fucking hamburgers, yeah, it can take your job. If you're a lawyer who's only doing 90% of those fucking cases without going to court, yeah, fuck you later. If you're a doctor who only does appendectomies, so what? See you. But true knowledge workers, no. AI is not in a position to replace that. AI has to learn from repetitive tasks. And so if you're doing things that are creativity driven and not repetitive tasks, it's not going to be taking your job anytime soon because it's got nothing to learn from. You change it every time. And as we said before, AI is nothing more than a tool. People are certainly going to backlash on it and fight back because people are resistant to change in the story. They don't want to learn new skills or things like that to move forward in life. They certainly don't want to learn anything. And that's a big thing.
Let's flip this then backwards on our last topic of the top 10 in AI. Generative AI being everywhere from a positive standpoint. And one thing I know I'm watching in 2026, AI became truly mainstream business. I was on a call with some ultra high net worth a couple days ago. And, they keep using the term AI, a bunch of older dudes. And I said, this reminds me of when I was younger and Google came out. And you remember when people would say, I'm going to Google it, I'm going to search it. Nobody says that anymore. And I feel like 25 going into 2026, almost half, 47% of workers are using AI monthly. And enterprises are using it, soaring. It's starting to become more mainstream. I think one thing that's important to watch this year is use it as a tool. Many leaders had to unlearn the notion that AI is futuristic. It's now a core business competency. So the key going forward is adopting it thoughtfully and balancing automation with human judgment. Any final words to take us out, Cowboy, going into 2026?
Sure. I mean, generative AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to keep evolving, and calculators are everywhere too. It doesn't mean everyone fucking uses one. So that's huge. But is there? Yeah, it's going to consistently be a tool. But do you make it a tool? Do you use it as a tool? And naming the company, I'm AI auditors or some shit like that. Fuck you. I mean, nobody wants to hear AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be a big year. Lastly, we'll also send a link that you can click on this screen. This year, you'll watch 10 AI companies that are IPOing this year to see what happens, Claude and OpenAI being one of them. Anyhow, I think that's a great episode. Like, share, comment, put any comments you want to see in the future videos. Cowboy, do you have anything to add or take us out?
No, definitely. Remember, like, share, and comment. We love the love. And it's Cowboy and Tim coming at you again. So let's get it done this week.
Remember to like, comment, share, and hit the subscribe button. That helps us grow our channel, which helps us get larger guests.